Welcome to TAP. You are listening to the Therapeutic Astrology podcast, and today you are joined by Molly Pace and myself, Mannah, two therapeutic astrologers. So I'm really excited about this conversation and to share about what different elements both of us bring into what we call therapeutic astrology, and which is, astrology in a therapeutic way. But I know you have your whole art angle to it, so I'm curious about that. And my intention is really just to have a chill conversation where we, as in a way, colleagues and also fellow Pluto in Scorpio people.
Yes.
So it's like we're just gonna have a good time together. What do you say about that?
Oh, I'm so excited, Mannah. You know that. Plus our charts, like the synastry between us, it's going to be a fire conversation.
Yeah. So welcome. I want to say that. Welcome.
Thank you.
And I'm, maybe just let me know in the beginning here what it is. How do you combine astrology with your therapeutic sessions?
Okay, so I ask clients straight off the bat, can I have your birth data? Because I can work best with you if I can have that information. And they're usually willing to say yes. They come to me first and foremost for therapy, but I also offer like individual chart readings so they can contact me for that. But I'm asking all of my therapy clients to give me their birth charts because that's how I feel like I can work best with them. And so first I listen, I just allow them to speak to me and do our normal intake process. But then I'm reading it through the lens of their chart. So I can see their moon sign, I can see their Venus, I can see the house placements and how that's showing up as why they're here. And then I use that language to communicate it back to them of like, so here, this is why you may be so sensitive, or this may be why it's hard for you to feel your feelings. And I can help you with that by putting it into the language of astrology and helping them understand like it's how you're designed, it's who you are. There's no shame and judgment in that, but how can we best work with that?
So it's really good for taking any judgment out of it, right? Because it brings this bigger dimension of why you might be struggling with these themes.
Yeah. I feel like people are so often are like, I know I shouldn't feel this way, but I do, or I know I shouldn't think like that, but I do. And they want to like get rid of it. They're like,
Yes. Yeah.
right, like let's use an example. People like moon in the 10th house. They're like, I know I shouldn't care about what people think about me, but I do. And I'm like, yes. Society wise, we know we should not care what people think about us. But those particular individuals are going to care. And so it gives people permission of like, stop fighting yourself. Stop fighting the energy that you are designed with and learn how to accept and work with that to the best degree.
Yeah. Oh, it opens up a lot when you say that because
Mm-hmm.
there's this evergreen question in astrology is, should we then accept that is who we are, or should we do something about it? Not necessarily
Mm-hmm.
getting rid of it, but to just accept, oh, I'm always gonna be afraid of what other people think. You might not want to live that kind of life. So I'm assuming there's some kind of change, right? So how
Yes.
do you cope with that? How do you work with that acceptance versus change in astrology?
Yes, exactly. We don't want to have that like victim mentality. Like, I am this way because this is my placement, and therefore I'm always going to worry what people think about me.
Yeah.
Because, right, that isn't comfortable. They're still coming to me because there's a part of them that doesn't like that.
Yeah.
So, when I think about acceptances, it's there is still an element to change. So, I look at like what's the higher octave of that, right? If your moon's in the 10th house, of course, we're going to care what people think about us because
Yeah.
our public reputation is important,
Yeah.
but maybe we might want to add and develop some other aspects like I can't control what people think. Some people are going to like me and some are not, and I can learn to be okay with that. It's sort of like working it up into the higher octaves and degrees of that sign or that placement, and not just accepting it in the lower expressions, which might not be healthy. So yeah, I do think change, but it's like you can't change your stripes. Like there's still an aspect of your moon is always going to be in the 10th house. But we progress, we grow, we change. So what's the higher element of that? How can we step into that?
Yeah. And you used the word progress, right? So we also have a progress chart, and we have transit all the time. That the changes are going to happen if we allow it. But yeah, there is that baseline in the birth chart that seems hardcore to do so
Yes.
much about.
Yes.
But then there is that you can also use it as an excuse, right? I just said yesterday to my taking this. I'm in the middle of exams right now in a diploma course in astrology, and last night I said to, because he was complaining, my teacher, around. He said you're too fast with sending me this. Use time, go into details, right? And I said, but that's my Mercury in Aries. I'm doing it fast. And he was like, yeah. And it's like, he didn't accept that, so we may know this, but, you can't just pull that up and say that's why.
Right. But there's that like balance again. It's like, but I am going to be fast and I
Yeah.
am just going to go with it. And I don't want to review the details.
Yeah.
And I'm going to accept that that's who I am, but I can take some feedback of like, okay, but I'm hearing you in this moment. You want me to go back and revise this for details. And Aries trying to listen to people tell them what to do. Like, what? Okay.
Exactly.
But you can kind of work with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
always to me that acceptance, but like, let's reflect and look at how can we be the best version of that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's really true. It's not settled in my mind how to work with it, how much to accept, how much to work with it. I think it's an ongoing theme.
Yes.
Comes back up and like, okay, yeah. I think that I often think about is that the chart is really who we identify with as being. So I wonder if we were not identifying with anything, would we just be all
What was the
Pisces?
first word you said? A child, you said?
No, I don't think I said a child. I wonder what I said. I said chart. Like what part of
Chart.
identifying
Yes.
with our chart, right? We identify with these different roles. But what if we didn't?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I do have some people that I feel like they don't relate with that, and that's okay. I think for some individuals, reading the chart is like, yes, that's me. You see me, you understand me. That gives language to how I feel and how I operate. And that in and of itself is healing. I notice like when people come to me for just a birth chart reading, not therapy, and I just one time read their chart, it's like, oh, they feel some sort of like relief or something special, something good because they feel seen and understood.
Yeah.
Right.
But
There are a few.
you've tried people who didn't relate to it.
Yeah, like, and I'll communicate that out loud. Like, I have a guy who is incredibly sensitive and he's been working with me. And like right off the bat, before I pull up his chart, I'm like, this dude is a water moon. Like, he's emotional, he's sensitive, he's deep feeling. Like, I knew it. And when I pulled up his chart, he had an air moon and an air house. And I was like, I am not feeling this. Like, he doesn't feel emotionally detached. And I was like, well, yeah, he's talking about his feelings. So I get the air part,
Yes. Yeah.
but he was not detached from them. He was feeling them incredibly deeply.
Okay.
And so even I, as a therapist, struggled to connect with him around his moon sign when I wasn't really feeling it show up. So I don't get hooked on the chart.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, you are here because you are deeply feeling something. Let's work with that. Forget your moon sign.
Great point.
But
yeah.
with other people, I'm like, you are your chart. I see it right here. Like, let's focus and understand this, and then we work with it, and you'll get better.
No, so that's a great point to first of all only do it when it makes sense, and then also not to get hooked on it because there are so many other, and there might even be layers in the chart that we are not right now seeing, like some kind of aspect,
True.
whatever thing he's going through. So
Yes. Yep. Yeah. And when you really listen to someone, like it's less about me reading the chart and me being present with someone and listening to what they're saying.
Yeah.
Because this person comes from a line of adoption. And then I started to see that in his chart. And I'm like, well, maybe the emotions are coming through from these wounds. It's not just the moon is the only emotional part of our chart.
No, absolutely.
So we as astrologers can sometimes just like go through those basics, like your sun, your moon, your Mercury, your this. Like we think we know someone just based on those like points that we're looking at, but it's deeper. And this is why I pull up someone's chart every time they come into my office, and I will see something different, and I will talk about something different because initially I'm just looking at what is my eye being drawn to and what's big, like what stands out. But then it's like, what are those subtleties, and really looking into those.
Yeah, because the change that occurs is also dependent on our perception. And then the whole thing about therapeutic astrology, right? And I know people mean a lot of things, a whole range of systems and approaches people mean when they say therapeutic astrology. So we'll try and explain our ways and our differences maybe. I think a common thread for us is this, that we are open to whatever they're sharing rather than having too much already exact knowledge about them when they come in.
Exactly. That's you and I in our Sagittarius energy, right? Like we're like, okay, we think we know the truth, but let's be open to some other truths here.
Yeah, it's really balancing that out because, of course, we need the knowledge, we need the study, and we need to know. But then doing therapy with people, it's really about being in the unknown and in insecurity of what's going on with you. We don't know.
Yeah.
So Molly, we were talking a few days ago, and you said something about synchronizing your life to the planetary movements, and you've had experiences of going into that flow with your life. Can you say something about that?
Yeah, transits. So we can study our birth chart. I think that's a great understanding of who we are, but the transits are really looking at what's happening to us right now. And again, it's that acceptance versus change. I look at like, what can I accept of like what's happening in my life right now based on what's happening, and be open to that. So a big transit for me right now is Neptune conjunct my moon.
Yeah.
And I feel incredibly intuitive, and I have these insights or these feelings or these knowingnesses, and I'm allowing those to come through. I used to place a lot more importance on like logic and reasons and concrete things I could see, but I'm accepting this part of me that feels very intuitive or very receiving these messages and these downloads and trusting that. I also was joking because all the energy in Taurus is giving me this huge focus on financial aspects of my life. So I'm looking at saving and where do I spend my money and how do I spend my money. And those are things that like have never interested me. And I've always like, even when I go to like kind of work on some of those financial pieces, I'm just like, ugh, the Sag in me just wants to like throw it out the door and crack open a beer and just like chill out. Like, why be so serious? But I'm like, no, like Molly, this is really important in your life right now to think about. Let's think about that. And so I'm working with the energy instead of against the energy, even if it's different from how I'm naturally designed. It's what's showing up for me right now and how can I kind of go with that.
So just when you mentioned Taurus, are you talking about Jupiter and Uranus being in Taurus now for everyone, or is it in your chart? Yeah, you're talking about transit.
For everyone. Yeah. And it's getting close to crossing my ascendant. So anytime we've got those planets that are moving across ascendant, especially a big one like Uranus, for example, it's like I feel that it creeping up on my ascendant, like it was in the background and here it comes, and I'm like, you can't ignore this anymore. Let's do something. It will change your life if you do. And so I feel that.
Also, Neptune to your moon is a great cyclic perspective to be aware of. You were talking before we started recording about maybe having to move space. I was just thinking, the moon being, that's a home, but if you have it, it could be also your career home, maybe.
Moving it's space. In the 10th house, career home, right? Has a lot to do with career.
Yeah. So now you're revealing that you used your own example before, Molly.
I know, and I just realized that I also need to surrender and let go, and I'm not doing that, am I? Right? That Neptune and Pisces dissolves, and I'm like, I don't want to let go. No.
Yeah, but it's one of the arguments also to use astrology in therapy, to have that awareness of the cyclical. what is going on all the time for
Yes.
us. And of course, I know there are other ways to divide that. There's this whole developmental psychology, and there's ways to find, you know, what major themes that people would go through, but to have that individual perspective, I think astrology is really good, and it'll make more sense to the therapist, to the counselor. It's like, oh, that's what she's going
Yes.
through.
Yes, exactly. I think it's changed my life as a therapist. I was a therapist for about maybe like 10 years before I went to school for astrology and studied astrology. And it revitalized my career and myself as a therapist and has influenced my work so much. I think we always have a little bit of self-doubt as a therapist, which is normal and okay.
Yeah.
But I'm just like, I have something to back me up. Like, I
Yes.
understand why they're going through this, or like, this makes sense how they're thinking, or of course, these times are hard for them right now. And not like I needed to find, I was always looking for like some reason to help explain to someone why they're going through it and it's okay. And that just feels like sort of like cliche, somebody just saying something to be nice. But I think when you can put it into the language of like, no, literally, Neptune is crossing your moon, like, then it helps like give reason and acceptance around why something is happening right now.
Yeah. Oh, that's really. So you do that. You actually do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I've got people that like come in and they'll be telling me that their relationship is on the rocks. And sure enough, Uranus transiting their seventh house of marriage. I'm like, yeah, that's okay that you're having marriage problems right now. I'm glad you're here.
Yeah.
Stay with me for a little bit because, sometimes you're going to feel like you want to leave and
Yeah.
maybe something's going to happen. And, like it's okay to be here and to assess this. You might need support because this energy can be really challenging in that house of randomly bringing things up or
Yeah.
changing things or you feeling some anxiety around your relationship.
Okay, I guess the reason why I'm asking is, so you would say that to them, confirming that in the astrology, and then what would you do?
And then I move more into the therapeutic aspect. So I'm definitely an astrologer and a therapist,
Yes. Yeah.
right? So once we start talking about the relationships, like let's say I confirmed, okay, Uranus transiting your house of relationships, you're coming to me for relationship problems, bada bing, bada boom, perfect. You should be here for that. And then I'll shift more into the therapeutic side, looking at like their attachment style, how they grew up, right? How they're relating with this other person. Give them tips on how to communicate or ways to bring in some of those secure attachment styles to help solidify their relationship. So it astrology sort of is like putting language to understanding things, but then we still need to like work with change and healing.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. Great. No, that's what I was thinking about, because it's so different now. I've tried to find different people who have this combination of astrology, psychology, or therapy, and yeah, like I said, it's really different what they are referring to. What, it's actually like saying I'm a Christian, and then it's like, oh, but
What do you mean?
but
Yes.
that is
Yes.
actually quite, a country can be Christian, and yeah, so
Right.
it's a wide term actually, but for me as well, I will have that astrology session in one. That's actually what I do, also just because it has another price. So that's also like a
Yes.
practical concern.
Yeah.
And then therapy session. And if clients bring up their astrology, I won't refuse it. I know what they're talking about, but during therapy, I'll not go into it, because it
Mm-hmm.
can also be a bit of a dissociation sometimes, or something
Mm-hmm.
like just like, and no matter what it is actually, because I'm not sure I should judge what that is, but it can lead us astray. If I'll go into my
Yes.
astrology mode, all of a sudden I will have spoken for 10 minutes and I will, oh no, I was supposed to be here for your therapy, right? So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I like that there's some kind of division, even though that throughout the therapy session I am informed in the back of my mind
Yes.
about what I know about the symbols. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think you bring up a good point there. Like you and I can have a conversation and I can say moon conjunct Neptune and you know exactly what I'm talking about. But when I'm saying that to a client, they have absolutely no idea what I'm talking about. So you're right. Once I'm understanding their birth chart, it's in my head. I don't necessarily need to continue to speak that language to them so much as much as it is informing me to help them work through what's happening right now with that energy, right? It's just, I love talking to other astrologers
Yeah,
because it's like, oh, we can just speak that language and we get it.
exactly.
I
Exactly.
feel like I'm a translator for my clients. Like, okay, let me help you understand what's happening right now through that lens. And I try to even keep astrology words out of there because that doesn't matter to them. They're there because their relationship is struggling. So
Yeah.
who cares if I say Uranus transiting your relationship house?
Yeah. Yeah.
They just need to know that, like, what's happening right now is normal and okay. I'm
Yeah.
going to be with you through those scary up and down times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm. Right.
I
Yeah.
love it. You know, I love it and you
Yeah.
love it
Yeah.
too.
Yeah. So it's just about creating some boundaries around it, right? So it's used in the right arena in a way.
Yeah.
I feel, because that part you said about explaining it and conveying it to the client, that I feel is very appropriate in a astrology session. But in therapy, if I'm not aware, I can that can take up a lot of space.
Yes.
But tell me about what kind of therapeutic work you do. I have a photo of you with filled where your arms are filled with crayons or
Oh, you use the
colors,
marker fix? Yes.
markers.
Oh my God, I love that marker set. So many colors. I'm obsessed. I have to take a picture with it.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you do art
So,
therapy.
yep, I'm actually an art therapist. And with the school I went to, they had like a dual program. So I'm also a licensed mental health counselor where I do traditional therapy.
Okay.
And I'm also an art therapist. So I use a lot of art with clients. And personally, I am an artist myself. So I love to make art. It's a form of self-care and it's something that I love to do. So it's great to bring it into my work too.
Okay, so traditional therapy, what is that?
So I do a lot of just the basic, I would say person-centered, where I'm just getting to know a person, like what brings you here? Who
Mm-hmm.
are you? What's going
Mm-hmm.
on in your life?
Mm-hmm.
I am trained in EMDR and I do that
Okay.
frequently as well. So working with trauma
That's
and
EMDR,
really,
that's a technique with the eyes.
yeah, eye movement desensitization
Ah.
reprocessing.
Mm-hmm.
I find that really helpful for trauma. So going into those specific events. I also will use it to do a lot of internal family systems. So like working with those parts of us. So if a part maybe experienced a trauma that's not as um, easy to target, like a one-time event, maybe like a childhood experience of being neglected, then I can use EMDR and we can use some parts work. So like working with our inner child or our neglected self. And EMDR is a great tool for that. So when I say traditional therapy, it's where I'm like not using art and I'm not using astrology. I'm just
Okay.
meeting a person where they're at and helping them with what they got going on.
Okay. Because I was like, traditional, is it like psychoanalytic, Freudian?
Yeah,
But
no,
it
not me.
sounds
There's
like
nothing traditional about me. I shouldn't even have said that word. Like we all know I'm lying. No.
okay, yeah, okay, because art therapy is one of the more alternative approaches to therapy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a challenge. I'll be real honest with you. 14 years being a licensed therapist and an art therapist, the majority of individuals are interested in art therapy, but truly their willingness to do it, it's challenging. I do it a lot with kids. Kids are like, come sit down at my table. Let's use that cool pack of markers I got. Let's draw. And I talk to them while we're doing that. Or I'll do certain art activities with people, like an activity about letting go or an activity to get rid of anger. I'll do sort of things, especially with kids, teenagers, but it's really challenging for me to use it with adults. I think that they have a lot of other healing to do before they can get into the space where that is helpful for them in that moment.
Wow, tell me about that. I'm curious. Why? What happens? I mean, if they come to you and would you suggest art therapy, or how does it work?
You know, I don't necessarily suggest art therapy. I really meet people where they're at. If they're not coming to me to say, "Hey, I want to do art," then I'm not going to say, "Hey, I think we should do art." I'm
Oh.
pretty intuitive and I
Mm-hmm.
can sense that they need work on their relationship or to talk about this or to do that. I might suggest they make art outside a session, especially those that are creative, right? Especially if I'm reading their birth chart and I can see that that's something that's needed for them or healthy for them or a skill or a gift of theirs. I'm going to encourage them to do it. But I feel like I have 1 hour with someone in their busy lives.
Yeah.
Art to me is very personal, very intimate, very sacred. So I want them to have that time, but I feel like my time can be better used with them working with the energy that I'm feeling, whether that's through EMDR, releasing some trauma, or astrology, guiding them with knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
I probably am a quote unquote bad art therapist for that, but I've just leaned more into my therapy side and I honor art as a therapy. It's just not something that shows up so much in my work these days.
That is so interesting. So interesting. I wonder what. So there are several parts that I hear in what you're saying. You're saying that it's a sacred thing for you, meaning in the context that you said it, meaning it requires more time.
Yeah, it requires more time. I think I just meet people that are really struggling and
Yeah.
doing art with them isn't the what is needed. And what's
Mm.
coming to my mind as we're talking is when I was getting my art therapy supervision. So I'd have to go work with an art therapist for supervision. I have to tell her about my clients and what she would do. I love her. I learned a lot from her.
Mm-hmm.
But she was like, instead of hearing me talk about like a struggle or a problem or a client, she would be like, I want you to make art about it first. Don't talk to me, make art about it. And so I'm like, well, I don't mind making art. I'll make art. But I didn't feel like I was necessarily getting heard, like those questions answered. It was like the majority of my time was spent making art when I really wanted to use that time to get to the bottom of this issue.
Of course. Yeah, interesting. But so her philosophy must have been that you have to convey this you have to,
Yes, very
yeah.
much. And
Mm,
I think that that worked for her. I think
mm,
she is an art therapist.
mm.
I feel like with my adult clients, I could sense the same thing. If I would be like, let's not
Yeah.
talk today for the
Mm.
first 30 minutes and you make art, I don't feel like they would resonate with that. So,
No. I
but
th-
if they came to me seeking that,
yeah.
absolutely. I have this set up in my office. And again, with all kids, anybody under the age of 16, I'm making art with them. And it's a modality that I'm using so that I can connect with them through talking. Where adults, it's like, we don't need that. We don't need that sort of bridge. We can just communicate fully with our words in this way.
Well, for the moment, right? Because they're like, as I hear what you're saying, is maybe when they're ready, or when it's not, when they're less frustrated, I guess, less words
Yeah.
have to come through.
Yeah,
Uh,
I'll have clients that will bring their artwork in that they've done as homework and we'll talk
ah,
about their art, or
good.
they'll get back into their art at home and we'll talk about what that feels like. I I honor art and appreciate art. I give examples of how I use art as my self-care, what that looks like, how I do that. But that doesn't mean that that's everyone's form of self-care
No.
or what they need for healing. So it's just something that if people want to find me for that, they
Mm,
can.
mm, mm,
But I really meet people with where they're at. Why are you coming to me? What do you need from me? How can I serve you?
mm. That's what's so smart about your website name.
Mm-hmm.
That it's not
Yes.
right. It's not art
Right?
therapy, but it's heart therapy.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love that name. My husband helped me come up with that. I got to give him credit.
Credit to your
Right?
husband. Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really good. No, I feel like being an art therapist client right now. Uh, what is it called? That I go to art therapy, I guess. Um,
Yeah.
but how would you? So if I were to draw something, paint something, and you would look at it, would you interpret it like symbols?
So actually, let me tell you a little bit about where art therapy shows up regular for me. I forgot to mention that I do an art therapy group once a month. It's at a community mental health agency with individuals with mental health or substance abuse. It's a like a dual diagnosis program. And once a month, they
Okay.
come to my office, about 15 to 20 individuals, and we make art. And to me, that's really
Wow.
art therapy. So, what I'll do is last week, I'll tell you what we did last week. It was so good, so fun, so healing. We got 4 index cards, and I would say an emotion, and they had to draw that emotion. And they couldn't use words, they just had to use colors, symbols, shapes, and I gave them the direction of like, but you have to feel it. So if I said the word happy, I want you to think about what makes you happy so that you can tap into the energy of that emotion. And then while you're in that, what does that look like? What does that feel like? Then I would say another emotion, sad, mad, etc. So we got some practice, right? And I'm looking at what's behind you, and it's so beautiful. It's this like red and blue and smoky mist of colors. And I'm like, ooh, it's like it's deep and rich and soulful, right? I'm just guessing, what does that make me feel just by looking at it and interpreting it with how it makes me feel? So the last index card, what I said to someone is, or to the group, draw what you're feeling right now. And oftentimes we're not feeling just happy, just sad, right? I'm excited about my new building, but I'm also deeply scared. What does that look like? So using different colors, different shapes, I got to express how I'm feeling right now onto a card. And without telling anybody what I was feeling, as a group, we each held up our card, and then the group sort of made some inferences about that. They're like, you look excited, but also like it's crazy.
Okay, so the
They're like,
others, the other participants had to interpret
yes,
or just look at it anyway. Yeah.
yeah. And it was really cool to be like, wow, you understand what I'm feeling without me even needing to tell you. My art is telling you how I'm feeling. And so that was just a reminder to my art therapy group of why we do art therapy. It is another way to express how we're feeling without words, to be seen, to be understood. And it was healing because what was happening to me in the group and for others is like, I was seen in that moment. People understood what I was going through. I'm excited about something, but scared about something. And you guys are all right along this journey with me. And even things that they said about what I was feeling, I was like, I didn't even think that, but you're right. I am feeling that. How did you know? Like, how did you pull those words out? Like, thank you. You gave words to feelings that I couldn't even tap into myself.
So the one who painted it got to comment on it afterwards.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
That sounds
Yep.
fair. That
And we
sounds
were
fair.
all like pretty right on with people. It was so cool. It was like,
That's
wow, this art is
great.
powerful.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I can imagine that for people with dual diagnosis and I guess in general mental health or issues. I mean, sometimes I've met many people in the system. I've worked as a social worker. And so a lot of people have just repeated the story again and again and again. And it seems to just get worse every time. Right? It's just added layers to how horrible everything is. So yeah, I think especially for
Mama,
that category of people, yeah.
have you read the book, The Body Keeps the Score?
Yes, it's a
Okay,
classic.
good. Yes, it is. And it was just reminding me of that. It's like that repeating, right? And when we find people repeating their trauma and it's not necessarily getting better, you're just retelling the story. You know, that's what our job is as therapists, is like to recognize that and like, what intervention do you need to break that cycle?
Yeah. Yeah, and it's not even to say, it's not even to, because I just felt when I said that, I felt like I was making a division between me and others in that, but it's absolutely for everyone, I think, for me, absolutely, for that, it's like the negative wants to surface. It just wants to
Yes.
come out. Now someone's listening, let me unload, right?
Yes, totally.
Yeah, but it's not, usually not very helpful for anyone. Also, another thing I came to think of when you were speaking, Molly, is so I've seen your chart. I hope it's okay that I refer a little bit to it.
Yes, please do it.
It's just with the art therapy, and I'm thinking about, of course, there's a lot of art in your chart. There's
Right.
the Pisces, and you have your South Node in Libra. But also in terms of the whole issue around not speaking, that's Pisces, right? But you have Chiron in Gemini in the 12th house, in the house of Pisces.
Yes.
So
Yes.
there's something around expressing yourself or communicating, not through words. And that as something you really excel in and helping other people in. And also, if you look at the darker side, that maybe have been a struggle for you once upon a time. You know?
Absolutely. And that's why I love like just hearing other people speak about your chart, because they will say something that you haven't thought of, or you haven't worded it in that way. And I absolutely agree. I think that's probably why I went into art therapy, is I know how much can be expressed without words. And so I can listen and hear and see people through their art. And it's often difficult, even though I'm a Gemini rising and you guys hear me talking this whole time, it sometimes is difficult for me to express how I'm feeling, right? That South Node in Libra is like, I don't want to be a burden. I don't want to make you like it's, I want it to be about you. So that way I can please you and you can be happy and you will like me and it will be okay. And so if I were to ever bring anything disturbing to the table that would make you not like me, I'm not going to say it. I'll just keep it all in. So that North Node in Aries is like, speak your truth, just do it. I'm like, nope, not comfortable. No, thank you.
I actually want to ask you about that. How much of your own story is part of why you do what you're doing? Because I mean, speak a lot about my own traumas, and I mean, it has a price as well. It's not necessarily beneficial all the time that I do that, but at least it's clear that I'm not
Yeah.
saying that I'm a guru. I'm like saying I'm here because I also, you know, have been
Yes.
and am working through stuff. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think my own journey is definitely why I'm in the role that I'm in. And I do share it with people as well, because I think for myself, that moon in Pisces and my Scorpio placement, I'm deeply sensitive. I felt the world's pain. I have felt my own pain. And I understand on a deeply intuitive level what people are feeling. Again, then not being words, but more of that energetic felt sense of what people feel. And so when I can feel what they're feeling, I'm like, oh, I might have experienced this. Like, I'll share how I got through it, or I'll use that in the third person. So it's not always about me. But I have felt, I think when I think about my life and I've done my own healing, I often don't feel understood. I often don't feel seen, and like my emotions, like people aren't as sensitive as me. So they can't tune in and like, oh, Molly, I hear that. I understand that. Like, let me help you. So since that's never been done for me, that's what I want to do for others, to help them, because I know how much that would have helped me to have that. So I want to provide that for other people.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and just wanted to say that it's it's also about, again, boundaries. I am a
Mm-hmm.
Pisces, so I tend to care a lot about boundaries, um, because yeah, just forgetting what I was gonna say. No, it's because you were saying you maybe don't share so much about your own story, because then it's about you, and that's of course in a therapy situation. I don't do that. Even some people ask
Mm-hmm.
me because they've heard it on the podcast or whatever. They've heard something and
Mm-hmm.
they can ask me, but then I'll just try to sneak out of it.
Yes.
Back to
Yes.
you, because
Yes.
that will take up too much, again, space for. But
Yeah.
yeah, the whole, I think what I'm trying to ask is just like the consciousness of why we are there, because yes, we want to
Mm.
help, but what is it in you that needs to be close to someone else's darkness?
Yeah. Oh, that's a good question. Because I'm there, right? Because I feel those things. I like secretly love when I feel someone, like when I hear someone say something that like I struggle with. I'm like, yep, I know what that's like. And that closeness feels good, to not be alone, right? That I'm not the only one that feels like my mom doesn't care about me, or people don't like me, or I'm not good enough, right? It's part of that. It's part of that, right? And then it's like that feeling when I can feel that someone else feels what I feel. They may not be acknowledging me like I would have needed or wanted, but it's that not being alone with that. The interesting thing is my sun is in the sixth house and my moon
Yeah,
is in the 10th house. So it
yeah,
just easily gets to be not about me and how can I be of service to other people and help other people in my work. And I think that
right.
that is how I've helped heal those parts of me, is like that I'm not alone. I'm not alone. I actually have a little statue of the crying Buddha in my office, and there's a story around him. And I just remind myself, like, that pain for me is that pain for me, and I'm always going to have to attend to it. And one of the things that help is like, I'm not alone in that suffering. Somebody else has a mom that doesn't care about them. Somebody else feels like they're not good enough or people don't like them. Like, I'm not alone in that. And that in and of itself is kind of healing, truly.
Yeah. Yeah. And you started as a therapist. So you have a long journey with this, right?
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
mm,
Growing up, I was the oldest child of a divorced family. My mom was a workaholic. My dad was an alcoholic.
alcoholic.
And
Okay. Mm-hmm.
so you see that sun square moon. So it's like,
Yeah.
it's already in my birth chart. You already
Yeah.
know we got some
Yeah.
tension here.
Yeah.
Right. And my younger sister struggled. She had some mental health issues that later in adulthood turned into addiction issues. So I was the parent. So there goes
Okay.
that
Yes.
taking care of others. I have to be responsible, less of my own needs, more of that. And again, it's through being a therapist, I'm like, oh, that's me. I've done that. I am that. I have these wounds. And if I want to guide other people to doing that healing, then I have to do that myself. Right.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I'm pretty deeply aware of my own pain. It's just finding that I would rather be of service to other people. And I don't, astrology is probably the way that I've gotten healing back. It's like, well, my chart sees me, my chart understands me. Like
Yes.
when I talk to another astrologer, they see that I'm pretty deep and emotional and right. It's like, okay, there are ways of being seen, but
Yes.
I'm here to be of service to other people. And that just seems to be what happens to me.
Yeah. No, that's a good way to live out the traumas. I mean, we all, our motivations is often comes from some kind of wounding. So,
Mm-hmm.
and it seems I agree with you. Having the moon in the 10th house and the sun in the sixth, there can be no other way than you really have to serve and be a
Yeah.
light for the community. Yeah, in
Oh,
different
and
ways.
what just came to my mind was a book that really helped me. It's Chiron, The Healing Journey. And I have a heavy Chiron chart, right? Because my son's in the sixth house, because I'm Mercury ruled, I'm a Sagittarius, and the degree of my Sagittarius sun is Chiron based. So heavy Chiron chart.
So
I'm
Chiron
like,
based means it's completely opposite Chiron, or what are you talking about when it's Chiron based?
so this book is really good. It'll tell you things to look for that signify that you have a heavy Chiron chart,
Ah, uh-huh.
right? And I was doing like the little checklist. I've got like 8 out of 10 because Chiron is conjunct my ascendant. So boom, right there, heavy energy.
Yeah.
I'm a Sagittarius. I'm in because Chiron was a centaur, like Sag. And then I'm
Ah,
in
I like that.
this,
Yeah.
yeah. And then I'm in the arrow. So Chiron with the arrow, Sag with the arrow. Sag seeking truth and knowledge and wisdom and higher learning. That was Chiron. Then I'm in the sixth house. Virgo is the wounded healer. You think about that Virgo symbol, it stabs itself.
Right.
So sun in the sixth house. There's also Chiron's squaring my moon. Chiron's opposed my sun. Chiron touches every single planet in my
Yeah.
chart.
Yeah.
Period. So I am the wounded healer. I could tell you all day about my trauma, but I
Yeah.
just use that to help other people.
Yeah.
I so that book was just so affirming for me of like that my pain, as much as it is my pain, it's also what has helped me with people. And I see that every day. When someone says something,
Absolutely.
I'm like, felt it, know it.
Yeah.
Sorry, you're not alone. Let's get through this. Come on, let's go.
Yeah. 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 I bet you also have some of that. Come on, let's go.
For them, I'm like, my Pisces moon is gonna cry later.
Yeah. No, that's so good. And yeah, and we have different journeys like that because I started started teaching yoga, then I got into coaching, and then astrology, and then
Oh,
only therapy is a later pickup for me.
interesting. So we're like, again, it's me and you, Mona. That's
Yeah.
opposite. You're a Pisces sun, Sag moon. I'm a Sag sun, Pisces moon. And like, look at us doing it the opposite way. That's
Yeah.
funny.
Yeah, it's like a different order of things. And I can feel you when you're talking about it, that going, yeah, you're talking about that you're not alone, right? And why is that you can sense that you're not alone? I think it's different with coaching, because again, it's more like if I was an astrologer only, it's like I'm having all of these facts helping you. Of course, you as an astrologer, you would also say, do recognize that, and you'll get a story or two from the client, but not a whole lot. So intimacy is really what happens in therapy. It's so intimate. And what came to me when I started to do therapy is like, oh, everyone is struggling, like it, not just a little bit. Like I really felt that even people who was so cool and had it all together, you know, they also have an emotional life, and they also have things to work through. So I get the kind of confirmation, a kind of human connection in a way, I want to say.
Yeah,
you get from that.
Definitely. It is intimate. It is. And everyone is struggling. They experience it different. They process it different.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to say more about that?
Oh, I was just thinking about my chart with the Venus conjunct Pluto in Scorpio, right? So when you talked about intimacy, I'm like, you know, I go deep. I'm intense. I'm like, let's transform and rise from these ashes of this pain. Mm-hmm. And I feel like who I am has served me well as a therapist because I can go so deep, and because I'm comfortable with that, like, darkness and intimacy and relationship. There's a lot of people that struggle with that. I'm constantly reading my clients, where I just started with this new client, and it's funny because she'll just say, she's like, I am so uncomfortable. I'm probably not going to come next time because I'm so scared, but I really like you. Okay. And I'm like, great, let's, so my focus in that session was just about building a lot of safety and trust and, working with her on that level, because I'm like, I'm comfortable. Like, talk to me about your sex life. Talk to me about your deepest fears. Talk to me about that trauma experience. I'm okay hearing that. But a lot of people have a hard time getting that vulnerable, being that intimate, et cetera, right? Like, even when you were just trying to talk to me about my trauma, I'm like, how much can I share on a podcast? Like, do you really want to know? So it's like, I get it. But in my work, in my field, I'm like, we're okay with that. And it's our job to hold space for that, for people to go there with us.
Yeah. And knowledge about therapy, the practice of it has helped me a lot with that, because of course this happens when we speak, and I think just normally I'm not aware of it, but then in therapeutic sessions I'm trying to be very aware of transferences, right? Like, okay, so you said that, and that triggers this in me, but is it now about me, or is it still about you, right? Like trying to have awareness of your filters, so that it's still about what the client wants, and not what I may be projecting onto them. Yeah.
And I think for me, having the 10 years of therapeutic experience, you're constantly learning. Like, we go to school, we read books, we learn theories, we learn techniques, but it is a real experience working with people and figuring that out. I've definitely had therapy fails. Oh my gosh, I've had them, had successes, and I've learned a lot through my experience. Almost 14 years of being a therapist.
That's so cool. But see, that I like that about, there's the Scorpio portion of going deep, and then there's the Sagittarius of wanting to learn. And I really feel that therapy is satisfying that in me. Is satisfying the need to be close to all of this darkness, and then yet I'm also constantly learning about how to be in that space in the best way.
I was trying to bring up your chart before this podcast started because I put it in my phone, so I'm bringing it up, Mannah.
Oh no.
Yeah, let's talk about you.
But I was gonna go to the next question.
Go. I'm bringing you in at some point. Go ahead, Mannah.
Trying to escape the situation.
I know.
Oh God. Oh no.
Oh, that's so funny.
But
You have Chiron and Gemini
yeah, I
too.
do, because we are so close to each other age-wise. I'm a little
Really?
older.
A
But
little older.
right, but we're
Yes.
almost a year older,
I think it's like
9 months or something.
9 months.
Yeah,
That's weird, nine
yeah.
months. But Saturn conjunct Moon, conjunct Mars, Uranus. You got all that Stellium and Sag in the fifth house. Your sun's in the eighth house. So definitely meant to be a therapist with Pisces sun, eighth house.
You know,
Jupiter in there.
I've always been a therapist. That's how I feel, and I can even in
Mhm.
astrology sessions say something similar to people if they have some configuration in their chart. I'll say, "That's great, you're doing the education, but it's always been there." And I know it is important. It is important with that outer qualification for the world. But honestly, to me, it's you could read the books and just don't have any exams of other people having to judge you. You can just do it if it's in you. That's what I
Yeah.
think. But that's a Piscean way of looking at it. I know.
Yeah. Now I got your chart up. So go ahead with your next question. But I'm
Okay.
glad I can see you all
Well,
right here in front of me now.
great. There's also that kind of satisfaction, right? Of wanting to
Yes.
to look underneath.
Yes.
Someone else got you. Yeah.
Got you.
So the question I wanted to go to is around the Jupiterian themes, because you have quite a journey, have had a journey with it, and I'm just curious about that because of my own Sagittarius. So, yeah, where should we start to go? Maybe first if we talk about you, and then we can examine how that relates to Jupiter. So,
Sure.
your religious journey, I would like to hear about that, because you do have, yeah, you are a lot of Sagittarius. So of course
Yeah.
you've tried different systems, and so where are you with that? Where have you been? What have you discovered? Just share.
Sure. So I was born into a family that wasn't super religious, but the type of family or mom that wanted to drive to church to like look pretty, right?
Oh
And
my
just be there.
God.
So I felt no sort of like connection. I all I remember was getting yelled at for being late
Oh
because
my
we were
God.
spending time putting my bow in my hair and we had to look really pretty,
Oh my
right? So
God.
I was like,
I hate
I
it.
don't remember church. I remember that. But then I was like singing in church and a part of it. And one thing I forgot to mention is that my mom is in the military and she was a single mom. So when 9/11 happened, my
Oh.
mom went from being a reserve, working at the local hospital, being home with me and my sister, to being sent overseas. So that was a life-changing experience for me,
Wow.
going from living with my mom to my mom leaving. And I was on the journey to like being confirmed in the church. And I was doing it again a lot for her approval and because it was what you were supposed to do. You just go through these steps. And I think when she left, it made me feel like, well, what's the point of going to church? So I left the church. And that was pretty easy for me because as a Sagittarius, I'm like, I want to know all the truth. I want to discover all the religions. And like,
Good.
that was what I did. So I studied Buddhism and all different types just with interest. And I found that I knew I was sensitive. I knew I had a connection to a higher power. I would talk to God. Sometimes I would call it source. Sometimes I would call it the universe. Sometimes I would call it spirit. I didn't care. I knew that I had a connection and I didn't like the rules and boxes of religions. So I stepped out. I didn't identify with any religion. I just had my own sort of spiritual practice. Even got really into, before COVID, I remember, um, my practice was so based on like meditation and talking to spirit and working with my guides. And I stepped into this medicine wheel process that was based out of like Peru. So we did like the rites of initiation. I did the medicine wheel. I got ancestors and guides and did so much healing. And it was probably like one of the best experiences of my life to feel again, like more connected, more healed, more rooted, more having that like spirit team as like my support system.
But
Um,
how did you learn about all of these things?
so my practice, I rented space from a woman who owned a yoga studio, and that's where my therapy office was. And that's what she did. She got connected with these Andean individuals who have like come to the United States to teach their ways. So they had this philosophy where like they had this religious practice, and when the conquistadors came to Peru and invaded, these shamans, these original people, moved up into the mountains, and they lived up there because they said it was closer to spirit.
Yeah,
And
I think it
their
is.
prophecy was like, one day men with swords were going to come and take your life away. So
What?
they
What?
ran
What?
up to
What? What? Who's gonna come? What?
these shamans knew that one day men with swords were going to come and threaten their way of life. So they moved up to the mountains.
Okay.
And then
Men of Swords.
there's like
Okay.
an anthropologist that found that these people came down from the mountains, and they said, we have a new prophecy. It's not men with swords that are going to come. It's the earth is turning on herself.
Wow.
We have lost our connection with spirit, and we need to reconnect with Mother Earth and be more in balance. And so we've come down from the mountain to not just live up there being close to spirit, but to bring spirit closer to you guys. So then these individuals have come to the United States and have taught their teachings, the medicine wheel, to help people be closer to spirit. And since where I had connected, like my office, she is an initiated shaman into this practice, I did the medicine wheel and I walked this path and I did this course, and it was incredibly healing. And again, because I feel close to God, source, spirit, earth, all the things around me, that resonated, that worked for me. Then what happened was in 2020 with COVID, the world shut down. But I just intuitively knew this is messed up. There's something going on here. There's something deeper. I don't just believe what the government is telling me. I don't understand what we're doing. And so the Sag in me just explored that, did research, found my own truth. And
I think, okay, so the Sagittarius, find your own truth, do the research, but then at all being critical might have been the Scorpio, right?
Yes. Yeah, and not trusting. Like, I don't trust the government.
Yeah.
And intuition. Like, it's all intuition based. I have to follow my intuition because I think I've got 6 planets in water. Maybe more. So, like, listen, I feel things, people.
Yeah.
And I got to figure out where that's coming from. But my local schools were making kids wear masks. And there was just something so strong in me that I did not believe that. Did not feel that was appropriate. I did not want to live in that fear. And I did not want to do that. So I was researching, and there was one school in my area that was not going to make kids go back to school wearing masks. And it was a Christian private school. And I thought, well, hey, I love God, right? Jesus is cool in my eyes. Like, let's go. So I put my kids in this school.
And so you converted to Christianity because of COVID.
Period.
It's a great story.
But listen.
It's a great story.
Oh my gosh, it's so funny when I think about it like that.
It is kind of funny.
Yep. But I mean, convert. It's like, I mean,
you already believed in God. Yeah.
I already believed in God and I already believe in Jesus, but I would see I see religion as like a box, and it's like, you have to be in this box. And if you're not in this box, then you're not. And so like, do I believe the majority of the things that Christians say? I mean, I don't know about that. I mean, I believe in Jesus. I believe in God. I believe that he died on the cross for us. Absolutely. But I believe a lot of other things that I don't feel like fit in that box. So I don't think that people would think that I'm a Christian. And I think that's funny because I feel so close to Jesus. And I'm like the Mary Magdalene of our times. I'm telling you, I'm like, listen, I'm his right-hand girl. Like, we have a relationship. But I'm not going to believe everything that... It's just some of the things just don't resonate with me.
I mean, you cannot, per definition, be a fundamentalist when you also approve of other systems or other philosophies. So you can't be
But yeah, I can't, I guess like, and like that hurts me. I'm like, you can't say I don't
Yeah, I'm
belong as a
sorry. I
Christian.
know.
No, no, no,
I'm-
it's okay. They will, I'm sure my entire community of church would also think that about me. But I think that that's funny because
no, but that's
who
again,
defines that?
yeah, but that's when the thing about Christian, that's a wide term, but being fundamentalist, that's different. I guess we could
I don't know what
put
that
it
means
like,
actually. What's
yeah.
fundamentalist? What is a fundamentalist?
Yeah, but just be happy that you don't know.
Okay, good. All right, cool. Dude,
Just
slippery
live
underwear.
live your life happily.
Oh, love it.
But you'll probably meet a couple in church. But
Oh yeah.
you said something that I wanted to what was it? Yeah, Magdalene, Mary Magdalene.
Mm,
Can
love her.
share about that because you've read this
Yeah,
something
her
that's
Lost Gospels.
yeah. Tell me about it, please. Can you?
All the Lost Gospels, actually, because people will say, you know, it's like the Bible, but the Bible is a collection of a bunch of books. But there was a choice about what books made it in there and what did not.
Yeah.
And there are some that are missing, and I think that's key, right? So these Lost Gospels, specifically Mary Magdalene, the Dead Sea Scrolls, the Book of Enoch, right? There's really important messages that have been left out. So Megan Watterson wrote a book called Mary Magdalene Revealed, which is breaking down her gospels. And I just resonate with that. I resonate so much with her connection to Jesus and how she loved him and how she followed him and how she's misunderstood. The Bible, or people would say that she was a whore, right? That she was a prostitute. But Jesus loved her and he had a relationship with her. Jesus was fully human and fully divine, which meant he also was human to fall in love and to have a relationship,
Did they have
right? She
sex?
was,
Did they have a sexual thing?
yeah,
Okay.
some say they had a child. And I believe that because I think that Jesus is here to show us that like we're all human. Like when you think of Jesus as this like pure, which he was, but perfect, but he was also human, which means he loved and he had a relationship and he struggled at times. But and Mary, he taught Mary everything. So her gospels were about how Jesus taught her there are 7 attributes about being human and that we have to transcend these, like the ego and jealousy and anger, which leads to what we would call sin, like stealing or coveting somebody's wife, right? How do you transcend those? And he taught Mary these things.
That's great. So the attributes are what's causing the
The
behavior
sin.
of the Ten Commandments
Yeah.
are condemning.
Yes. Yes.
Wow.
So,
Okay. Hmm.
right, like I work on it from a human level. I before I got into Christianity, it was like about ascension to me, frequency, right? And to me, Jesus he ascended. He died and rose from the grave, and we saw his body as a light body because he held the frequencies of things like love and compassion and forgiveness, which are such a high frequency. And then we as humans in our human body struggle to hold those frequencies. We're still angry at people. We don't forgive them. We are jealous. So those frequencies keep us in these lower states, right? And so Jesus is a good example of how to ascend, to raise your frequency to a level that you can just be in your light body. So that's why I always believed in Jesus before I even came into Christianity. Is like I saw him as an ascended master.
Right. Ah. I can't say very much, Molly, because it's like
Yes.
mixing with my old
Yes, I know. And like
perception. I'm
that's the
like,
funny thing
wow.
is like we're both backwards, right? Like I have
Yes.
not been in the church and just getting in. You've been in the church and are getting out, is what I'm assuming, right? And
No,
so
I've been out for I think what 7, 8 years or something. I've been out,
right.
but that